The Real McCoy. Biography by Jim Haskins. Elijah McCoy's name is still remembered today and has become synonymous with the ideas of perfection and quality. When we say that something is the real McCoy, we are remembering Elijah McCoy whether we are aware of it or not. Elijah McCoy, 1843 to 1929, was born on May 2, 1843, in Colchester, Ontario, Canada, the son of two runaway slaves, fugitives who had escaped from Kentucky by way of the Underground Railroad. After the Civil War, Elijah and his parents returned to the United States, settling down near Ypsilanti, Michigan. There, Elijah attended school and worked in a machine shop. McCoy, even as a boy, was fascinated with machines and tools. He was fortunate to have been born into an era that suited him perfectly, a time when newer and better machines were being invented. The age of the machine. Following the footsteps of steam was that new energy source, electricity, which opened up even more opportunities for the inventive mind. McCoy's interest only deepened with the emergence of each new device. He decided to go to Edinburgh, Scotland, where the bias against his color was not so evident, and serve an apprenticeship in mechanical engineering. After finishing his apprenticeship, McCoy returned to the United States a mechanical engineer, eager to put his skills to work. But companies at that time were reluctant to hire a black man to fill such a highly skilled position. Prejudice was strong, and the myth that blacks were intellectually inferior to whites persisted. Companies felt that McCoy could not possibly be as skilled as he claimed to be, and, even if he were, the white workers he might have to supervise would never take orders from a black man. The only job he was able to find was as a fireman on the Michigan Central Railroad. The job of fireman was hardly one that required the sophisticated skills McCoy had obtained. His duties consisted of fueling the firebox of the engine to keep the steam up and oiling the engine. The way train and other types of engines were built meant that it was necessary to stop the train periodically or to shut down whatever engine was being used so the moving parts could be lubricated. If the engines were not oiled, the parts would wear out quickly, or friction would cause the parts to heat up, causing fires. Hand lubricating engines was an inefficient but necessary procedure. Many men or women, when faced with a repetitive, essentially mindless task, might sink into an unthinking lethargy, doing only that which is required of them and no more. But this was not true of Elijah McCoy. He did his job, oiling the engines, but that job led him to become interested in the problems of lubricating any kind of machinery that was in motion. For 2 years, he worked on the problem on his own time in his own homemade machine shop. His initial idea was to manufacture the machines with canals cut into them with connecting devices between their various parts to distribute the oil throughout the machines while they were running. He wanted to make lubrication automatic. Finally, McCoy came up with what he called the lubricating cup, or drip cup. The lubricating cup was a small container filled with oil, with a stopcock to regulate the flow of oil into the parts of a moving machine. The lubricating or drip cup seemed an obvious invention, yet no one had thought of it before McCoy. It has since been described as the key device in perfecting the overall lubrication system used in large industry today. With a drip cup installed, it was no longer necessary to shut down a machine in order to oil it, thus saving both time and money. McCoy received his patent for it on July 12, 1872. The drip cup could be used on machinery of all types, and it was quickly adopted by machine manufacturers everywhere. Of course, there were imitators, but their devices were not as effective or efficient as McCoy's. It soon became standard practice for an equipment buyer to inquire if the machine contained the real McCoy. So commonly was this expression used that it soon spread outside the machine industry and came to have the general meaning of the real thing or perfection. Nowadays, if someone states that they want the real McCoy, it is taken to mean that they want the genuine article, the best, not a shoddy imitation. In 1872, of course, Elijah McCoy could not foresee that his name would soon become associated with the idea of perfection. All he knew was that the thing worked and worked well on machinery of all types. The lubrication of machinery fascinated McCoy, and he continued to work in that area. In 1892, he invented and patented a number of devices for lubricating locomotive engines. These inventions were used in all Western railroads and on steamers plying the Great Lakes. Eventually, McCoy would invent a total of 23 lubricators for different kinds of equipment, and, in 1920, he applied his system to air brakes on vehicles. During his lifetime, Elijah McCoy was awarded over 57 patents and became known as one of the most prolific black inventors of the 19th century. In addition to his patents on various kinds of lubricating systems, he also received patents for such homey objects as an ironing table, a forerunner of today's ironing board, a lawn sprinkler, a steam dome, and a dope cup, a cup for administering medicine. He eventually founded the Elijah McCoy Manufacturing Company in Detroit, Michigan, to develop and sell his inventions. Until his death in 1929, McCoy continued working and inventing, sometimes patenting 2 or 3 new devices a year. Today, although many may not know who he was or what he did, his name remains to remind us of the idea of quality, and the steady, ceaseless roar of machinery is a paean to his inventiveness.